First year turned off a lot of money, man. It was up in the millions.
Best education is when you are doing something.
My arts degree, majoring in philosophy, does not put me on a very predictable path. It is not a simple life.
I started with asking my dad for a loan.
I won scholarships for my honours year. I won a scholarship to go to Oxford. I won multiple scholarships at Harvard and fellowships and prizes and stuff.
Don't waste time, money, and don't try to please everyone. It's so important to do what fulfills you, because then we can break that stigma.
When I told my grandparents, I'm not going to uni, I'm going to start a business, they were so disappointed.
University has been sold as the key to success, but with rising HECS debts, a brutal job market, and more people building careers without a degree, is it still worth it? Today, 4 people from completely different backgrounds will debate whether university is the best path forward, or if the value of a degree has changed for good.
I did my undergrad at Cetinay and then did honours there, and then I went to Oxford and did a year there and did my master's, and I'm currently at Harvard doing my doctorate.
Fresh out of school, me and my cousin were just brainstorming, and acai was a thing. One thing led to another. In 2024, we were rated #1 out of a single outlet store in all of Australia.
I'm entering my second semester of honours in philosophy. So I'm writing a thesis in the early modern philosophy of imagination. Going to be fantastic for KPIs.
So I've also started my own business. There is so much in the beauty industry you can do. There's wellness, clinical, skin, body, hair, there's endless options.
So I think universities are wonderful insofar as they give you time and you get to have a few years to work out what you're passionate about, work out what you want to do and meet people. You know, there are all these invaluable intangibles that come from being in a campus with people who are curious, interested, want to learn more about the world. And I think that's the sort of alchemy, if you will, of universities.
I definitely don't think university is worth it in today's society when we have such a cost of living crisis. I think a lot of people can learn from hands-on and workplace experience. I just feel like there are a lot of downsides broadly.
People that go to uni, it takes them 3 to 4 years minimum to get their degree without making any sort of money. Whereas if you start a business, you're making money that day. The only time I think people that need to go to uni is the people that need that medicine and doctoring and all that stuff. So.
Not philosophy or
Nah.
history.
AI's going to take over that soon.
I think the opposite, but we can come back to that.
So many of my clients are telling me that students aren't going to their lectures or it's all online, especially after COVID, things have totally turned digital. I don't know if maybe uni is still creating this social hub.
If you participate in any structure, you're not bound to get the goods of that structure simply by existing there. You have to engage with it yourself.
So something that was interesting that Fatz said was, you kind of waste 3-4 years, at university, or maybe not waste, but at least 3 or 4 years happen and you're not working. Having been a student for far too long. I'm sort of keenly aware of time and the cost benefit analysis that comes with that. But also I'm really appreciative of what that time means and what that time's been able to give me in terms of furthering my research, really critically dealing with issues in a way that, it's privileged. Being able to have space to think about ideas for an extended period of time is an amazing privilege, which I don't take lightly. But at the same time, I think that that's something that, can be valued and, hopefully, one day will be.
I think coming from an entrepreneur point of view, so I've also started my own business, the sky's the absolute limit. I look at potential degrees that I could have gone down, friends I know who have studied, and being an employee, you're always kind of stuck at your salary and you are trying to find higher jobs, but there is always that benchmark that you can hit. And being an entrepreneur, there is no limit.
I agree with Lara on that 100% because the way I see it is you go to uni, you get a degree and your salary is already pretty much set with what job you're going to do. And the only rise you can get is a pay rise from your employer. Whereas if you're an entrepreneur, like Lara said, there's no limit at all.
Can you give us, if you feel comfortable, a bit of an insight on how much you are making?
The first year turned off a lot of money, man. So it was up in the millions. So out of a small business out of Western Sydney, I think it was a very big accomplishment. And being at such a young age, it was a big eye-opener of how you're going to deal with that much money at that age. Because you don't see people at my age making that money unless they're 35 and above.
You can look at statistics, I guess, and chart which degrees predict the highest salaries and which predict the lowest and so on. I just think that if you are completely immersed in something and you are working as hard as you can and are as passionate as you can be, if you're at the top of those things, then those statistics stop mattering so much. So it's useful to think about. And similarly, there are hundreds of thousands of businesses that crash and burn. I'm sure you're aware of that. Yeah.
If someone just wants to live a simple life, just wants to go to uni and enjoy what they do, there's no reason why they can't do it.
Right.
But people like me, they just want to explore the world and take yourself to another level. But if you want to live a simple life, I think uni is the way to go.
I take issue, I guess, with this sort of flat idea, this sort of stereotype that, it's just a very simple thing and you do that and then it's over. I think in some ways it's more simplified. You might go and do law and then become a lawyer. You might go and do medicine and then become a doctor. But in other ways, it's just the beginning. And there are so many people who do interesting things that aren't so linear.
I worked for my father for about 5-6 years, and the best education I ever received was watching the way he works. His business was successful for 25 plus years, so I see if I took a lot of key notes and pointers out of his work and his day-to-day life and the way he lives and the way he runs things, my business will be successful.
What do you feel like you could learn on the job versus, say, a business degree at university?
Well, the teacher's not going to tell me how to run my business. At the end of the day, they're reading a book. I'm in the business, I'm there every day, I'm there for 12 to 14 hours a day. I only agree that they should go to like a degree if they're going to do the accounting side of things, which is going to help them do their business and run their business.
Education need not just be about making a career, I think, and earning money and understanding how to manage these things. I think the best education is broader than that.
I totally agree with you. We should be curious about the things we don't know. I'm sure there will be a time in your business, for instance, when you'll think, okay, we've reached a certain ceiling, how do we go further? And maybe at that stage, you'll become curious about other things.
I do feel like education is best found in the workplace, because the best education is when you are doing something. It's like you can bake a cake without a recipe, but you've got to fail and realize, oh shit, sorry. You can say shit. You realize like, oh, I forgot to put the eggs in. Like that's something you learn from doing.
I mean, just to sit with that analogy, wouldn't it be easier to have a recipe and be like, that's how you make a sponge?
Yes, but sometimes, okay, that's a really good example. You follow a recipe and it doesn't always work out well. And you think, oh, okay,
Sure.
It was a bit bitter. I should have added more of this.
Right.
Or it was too runny. I should add more flour next time.
Gotcha.
These are things that we're learning from experience. And that's why I truly believe that the best education comes from working.
In business studies class, the way I put it is I used to teach my teacher. Because being around my father for so long and learning about the business, it was like going into class and like she's trying to explain stuff. It's just like that's not what really happens in the business.
What would somebody who, say, didn't have a father who was in like a similar sort of work environment or business, who do they
I think there's a lot of role models out there in the business world that are willing to give information and willing to give their side of their story out to young people that want to learn.
For entrepreneurs, it's really hard to find these mentors out there. We don't have a professor to teach us how to do things at the end of the day. Like when you do jump in, start your own business, you look around and you're like, who do I ask for help? It's really limiting.
I agree with your perspective that mentor relationships are really important. And I think they've also been the basis of education, like on all scales for centuries, for thousands of years.
Whether it be going to university or starting a business, as a young person, it can be really challenging financially. Fatz, how did you go about starting your business?
I started with asking my dad for a loan, but I had to convince him first. I think that's the hard part. He gave us 2 weeks to go research about the industry, which is acai, and went back to my dad. I was like, this is the information we've got. We gathered all the costs and all the shops and everything. Like we had everything down pat. We were so confident. One thing led to another, and it just all fell into place. Within 6 months, the shop was open.
Wow.
And it was just like in debt to dad, and thank God paid him all back, and now we're just going our ways.
Contrary to perhaps a more vocational degree like law or like medicine or nursing, my arts degree majoring in philosophy does not put me on a very predictable path. It is not a simple life. It's sometimes intimidating, but I don't feel particularly overwhelmed and I don't feel stressed. My family has always been extremely supportive of me going to university. So that's something that I'm very fortunate to be able to rely upon. And part of the reason I think why I'm not terrified of what HECS will look like for me in 10 or 20 years. I coach debating at some schools and then I tutor English for the HSC, history, French, that kind of thing. And that pays rent and goes towards some savings. And honestly, maybe this is slightly reckless, but I'm just going to figure it out as I go.
I might jump to you. You've been at university
Yes.
for quite a while.
Yes.
How have you been able to finance?
So I worked and throughout my undergrad, and I also won scholarships. So I won scholarships for my honors year. I won a scholarship to go to Oxford. I won multiple scholarships at Harvard and fellowships and prizes and stuff. So I've been able to use that money, and Harvard's very generous as well with funding. So I was able to use that money to essentially pay for the whole thing and not be out of pocket.
I think a lot of people go into university with the idea that maybe they'll be perceived better in society and that they're more successful because they've gone to university. Success is not defined by academic intelligence or going to university.
Do you think there's a stigma for people that don't attend university?
100%. And I really want to advocate for these young people that are creative and who may not think that university is the right path. Follow that feeling and don't waste time, money, and don't try to please everyone. It's so important to do what fulfills you because then we can break that stigma.
The stigmas that go around, I think, for example, when I told my grandparents, I'm not going to uni, I'm going to start a business, they were so disappointed. But now they sit in front of my shop smiling, so I think I've made them proud.
It's funny, when I was thinking about today's debate, I was thinking also about the fact that, when I was at Oxford, I met a lot of relatively intelligent people, but also the last 6 prime ministers in England have all gone to Oxford. That's perverse. That's weird. It's such like a small sample size of the population. And the idea that is necessarily this sort of precursor to leadership, in the UK is a absolutely sort of insane thing to me.
I feel like I've been made to feel a little bit cynical and concerned for some students at university, just when I see people doing a degree because they feel like they have to, and therefore as a result writing essays with ChatGPT and not really learning and not really enjoying it, and then not doing very well because ChatGPT can't write essays. My career as a thinker, more or less, is safe from AI. That's the as summative as I can make it. I don't know if this sounds like if this is a crude way to put it, but can't create a new idea, I think, and at least I'm going to put my faith in that.
Being in the food game and doing all that stuff, very hard for AI to take over. The only thing it could possibly take over is the marketing aspect of the business. Which I still think doesn't look as good as it naturally.
Just wait for the robots. They're coming for you.
I don't know if it could take over marketing though, because marketing is about how people feel and LLMs don't feel.
Yeah, but AI can make scripts or they can create images for branding, logos. So in a sense, it can take over marketing. It can write a whole script and all you have to do is say it. That's not coming from you, even though a human said it.
As an art historian, I think that, there's something fantastically important in humans communicating with each other. And I think that's something that can't be replaced.
Perhaps the main thing it'll just remind us of is how much we like human touch and human aspects of things.
You're speaking my language. That's why I feel so lucky to be in the beauty industry, because how can AI take over what I make my clients feel? So important that I'm making my clients feel cared for, that the touch is intentional. Everything is planned for them to feel like they're taken care of, and that is so human. And that is something we cannot take away, nor should we ever lose. I think it's so important working in these people industries that we just fight for human connection. It's so important that we just want to be more human.
So all of you have such different backgrounds and experiences and all feel safe from AI. Is there one path or career that you think isn't safe?
I think factory workers might have to be careful if they find out automated systems a way to pick products or pick packaging.
I worry for coders. You know, I think there was this time about 4 years ago when the great thing was to drop out of university and go do a coding boot camp.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that is still like a viable pathway or whether that will increasingly become a problematic one. I think things that are not insulated by human connection, communion, physical activities, all of these sorts of incredibly important things will increasingly become eroded, I suspect.
I think that's a wrap.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.